Continuing our reading from Rushdoony's The Politics of Guilt and Pity, Chapter 1, Masochism and Atonement. Sixth, the will to failure is a common factor in masochism. Failure is a penalty paid, an atonement made for sins committed. Numerous other forms of masochistic activity can be cited. Suffice it to cite but one more: suicidal activity. Many persons do not reveal their personal masochism, but they do participate in mass masochism through political and economic views and activities calculated to fulfill the urge to mass destruction. According to Warner, the two major dynamic factors which enter into the causation of self and other defeat, unquote, are, quote, the craving for individual power and the motive of revenge, unquote, from his The Urge to Mass Destruction, New York, Gruen and Stratton, 1957, that book by Samuel J. Warner. Behind this suicidal drive is a hatred of all life and a desire to destroy all life. Quote, to lead the living to suicide, unquote. Victory through defeat, unquote, becomes the goal, and the more widespread the defeat, the greater the victory. The goal unconsciously becomes mass destruction, a mass grave for all, from page 152. The politics and the economics of the modern era are increasingly dominated by this unrelenting, unconscious urge to mass destruction. Masochism is thus closely related to suicide. Masochistic activities are not only forms of self-atonement, but also forms of self-deception. Thus, Burglar sees homosexuality as inner admission of the lesser crime. In his Counterfeit Sex, Homosexuality, Impotence, Frigidity, Second Enlarged Edition, New York, Gruen and Stratton, 1958. Masochism is guilt atonement, but it is an atonement that both pleads guilty to the lesser crime and seeks refuge at the same time in self-justification. The guilty person conceals a greater crime by open profession of a lesser one. For the Christian, the truest definition of sin is that it is any want of conformity unto or transgression of the law of God, given as a rule to the reasonable creature. A form of activity closely related to masochism and having identical roots, and some would call it a form of masochism, is sadism. In sadism, self-punishment involves also a transfer of guilt to an innocent party. It is a form of revenge against the innocent for their innocence, and an attempt to reduce them to the same level of impotence and guilt. David prayed, "Keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man who have purposed to overthrow my goings." Psalm 140, verse 4. Some men go to great expense and pains to seduce a virgin or a faithful wife whom they actually dislike, for only one reason: to humble them, to destroy their offensive innocence. A form of self-justification is thus the reduction of the world to the sinner's level. Some parents will both indulge flagrantly and then punish savagely their children as they alternate between a mood of longing for the triumph of self-indulgence and a resentment that anyone can escape the punishment when they cannot. When a parent handles his child badly, it usually means he's handling himself badly. Flanders Dunbar, M.D., Your Child's Mind and Body, New York Random House, 1949. Reich, after having analyzed the problem of guilt in Freudian terms, discards the Freudian belief in its deeply instinctual nature to state, "We all live beyond our moral means. Let us be more tolerant towards our aggressive feelings, towards our mean, cruel, and vindictive thoughts. We should at least in our daydreams dare to give the devil a fair chance. The incompatibility of high moral demands on the ego with human nature manifests itself in masochism by the production of that need for punishments as a reaction to the forbidden instinctual gratification in fantasy." To be continued.